Unbelievably important podcast in the history of the Nightly News, as this is our first transmission from our brand new studio. And we are so proud to be joined by Adrienne Thoman, who is the Student Activities Director here at Central Penn College. Adrienne's been somebody that has long supported what we've done and has also been an influential member of the podcast here. She's actually holds the honor of being on more podcasts than anyone else other than myself, of course. So, Adrienne, welcome to the show. What do you think of our new studio?
I am so excited, and I'm even more excited that I get to be first in this awesome new studio. So I feel very honored.
Well, you know, it's been a long time coming. Of course, we have lots of people to thank, and you are certainly one of them. What you do for our clubs here on campus is really quite amazing, and your expertise and your leadership has really helped get the Nightly News to where we are, and hopefully help us create a vision for where we want to be in the future. So we really, not only just myself, but collectively, as an entire club, we really just thank you for not only everything you do for us, but everything you do for all of the wonderful clubs here on the Central Penn campus.
Oh, well, you guys make it easy. You guys are awesome.
Well, we do our very best, so thank you very much. Without further ado, what we are here to talk about today is the February events. I know that we had missed the last couple of months. We were waiting to get moved into our new studio. So this is the first time in 2017 that we're going to talk about some of the events coming up. There's a couple of events I wanted to start off by talking about, and then, of course, before the end of this part of the podcast, we will be talking with Adrienne about her featured 3. Before we get into that, I did just want to highlight, we do have several segments here on the show today. We'll be joined by news correspondent Norm Geary, talking about some exciting things we have going on with the Nightly News. And we're also going to be joined, Adrienne's going to come back later in the show, along with theater director Janet Bixler, to talk about the wonderful A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer presentation that they've got coming up later in February. So, Adrienne, let's get right down to business. Before we get too far into some things that you are looking forward to, I just wanted to put out there something that the Media Club is doing, one of our most prolific fundraisers. That's going to be on February the 15th, Wednesday, and that's going to be the annual soup sale.
It's delicious.
Well, all I do is follow a recipe, so I can't say that I'm doing anything out of the ordinary, but I know that my Maryland crab soup last year was a big hit. And again, our largest fundraiser to date, so we're extremely pleased with how that went. So please, everybody, don't bring your lunch on February 15th. Let us cook for you, and it does all go to support a wonderful cause. Other than the featured 3 events, Adrienne, what were some of the other things coming up in February that you wanted to make a note of?
Well, February calendar is full. We have a ton of great things happening. We are planning our trip to Sky Zone happening on February 23rd. Well, I have to mention the improv comedy show with the Oxymorons. We're going to do that on February 12th. A lot of field trips this month off campus. We do snow tubing the last week of the month too. So we're going to get you off campus, do some fun things, laugh a little bit, have some fun.
I noticed that I wanted to talk about the Oxymorons a little bit. It's been something that I know that some of the people from the comedy troupe have been involved in things we do down at the theater. And I'll tell you, I never really got involved with them. The first time I saw them and heard who they were, I actually remembered that I'd seen them at the Midtown Scholar one time that we were down there for Third in the Berg. These guys are hysterical. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are so good, and I've never fancied myself a comedian or even to have any type of acting ability. But can you talk a little bit about how the improv is, or maybe how they set the stage at their shows when you go over to see them on the...
Yep, second Sunday at ABC, Appalachian Brewing Company.
Tell us a little bit about that show.
So we love going because, you talk about how funny these guys and gals are. They are. But when you think about the fact that they are funny, but they're making it up on the spot, I think that just adds a whole other level to it. So they'll ask us prompting questions. Name a funny situation or name an occupation that you might have or a place you might want to travel. So the audience, and we take a bunch of students there, so we're yelling stuff out and pick our ideas. And then they take that, and then they just make something brilliantly funny out of it. It's great, and we're laughing our butts off.
It never ceases to amaze me, comedians, and I've always been a huge fan of comedy. I've probably seen 30 different stand-up comedians, and it always intrigues me how fascinating these people are and how they create this comedy, and so much of it is topical, and just even having this knowledge of current events, it's mind-blowing. So any of the students out there, and even I'm sure faculty and staff are welcome to join as well. If you're interested in a fun evening, and certainly not G-rated, but certainly not R-rated either. So I really think it's an excellent opportunity for our students here, and certainly anybody who's interested in performing on stage.
And we offer that free of charge for our students as well, and provide shuttle transportation to the restaurant.
You do such an amazing job making sure our students here get to the activities. I mean, I'm sure that's a very difficult task, but one that's also quite rewarding as well, to get some of these students involved with some of the things that you've planned.
Absolutely.
What are some other things that you see that are interesting other than the featured 3 we have coming up?
Well, if you're looking for something on the more thought-provoking side, I have to give a shout-out to our Common Hour series. This is a series that we do every Wednesday, where we bring in a different speaker or a different experience for our students to take advantage of. So actually on the 8th, Career Services is coming in, and they do a mock networking mixer. And that's pretty cool because there's actually, I know networking kind of can be intimidating, especially if you're new to it, have never practiced it before. And here we kind of start, Career Services gives you the tips and the tools to do it. And then we have little food stations set up so you get fed, there's lunch there. And then we'll have professionals there for you actually to have the opportunity to mix with. It's a very safe setting. You can feel safe to be able to make mistakes and get that experience in networking.
I've always been very involved since I've come here, even when I was just a part-time instructor with Career Services. One of the things that I look back on my college experience and regret is the fact that I was never involved in Career Services. But I will say, and this is no disrespect, I love Slippery Rock University, certainly not trying to disrespect them, but when I was there, I didn't feel that they advertised the services enough. And I think that may be partially because back then we didn't have to take a freshman seminar type class. And now that's the function of our classes, to introduce our students to the services that are available to them. But Adrienne, a lot of students that I talk to don't quite understand the importance of getting involved with Career Services while they are early in school. A lot of people think Career Services, I'm a senior, I'm getting ready to graduate, now's the time. But I don't agree with that at all. Steve doesn't agree with that at all. Can you just talk about some of the benefits of getting involved with Career Services early on in your education?
Oh, well, absolutely. So first of all, I have a lot of students that come to me and say, you know what, maybe they're a criminal justice major, and they really want to, maybe their goal is to work for a big FBI, CIA, something like that. But by the time they connect with Career Services, if they've waited too long, we have incredible connections with those organizations, with graduates here, our own alumni that are now working there, that students can utilize. Maybe it's an internship location. Maybe it's just a community, no, I don't want to say just, but maybe it's a community service experience that they do before they even get to their internship to get themselves in the door. If they wait to the last minute, they might lose those opportunities. But if they're in touch with Steve and Rubina and Kristen early, this is what I want to do, keep an eye out for me. They will do just that, and they'll make sure that you have those connections. So definitely it's an asset to our students if they are connecting with them sooner than later.
Steve has actually referenced before, too, because we've had him on, and we're actually going to have him on next week to talk about the CPEC job fair. Steve's actually talked before how important it is to go to job fairs early on, because typically when you're going to job fairs, the companies are sending the same representatives. And those representatives often are the people who are in charge of making these hiring decisions. So when you get to know them and you get to see them several times, it makes it a lot easier for them to get to know you and to learn more about you. And then Steve's even said that he's gotten employers calling him on the phone saying, hey, I've met X student several times. When are they graduating? We want to hire them. So there's so many different advantages. And of course, we'll talk about the CPEC job fair a little bit more on next week's podcast with Steve Hassinger. One more that I wanted to talk about is the bid day, the USCAA bid day, which is when the tournament brackets are announced for our Central Penn Knights in the USCAA conference. Can you tell us a little bit more about, I know that you're still kind of ironing out the details, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you did that last year, and maybe give us sort of a preview of what's coming up? And that's going to be on February the 21st.
Okay, so we're super excited about bid day. Our men's basketball team has been incredible. Last year they were second in the nation, and we truly anticipate them returning to the championship games this year. So bid day is huge for us. Last year we kind of did it as a celebration. So at bid day they're going to announce our seed in the tournament, and they do it live. So we get in a large room. We have all of our students and staff and faculty there, and we play it live when they announce it. It's so exciting to hear, on live television, to hear our Central Penn Knights giving that shout out, and big, lots of energy. We usually do cake and food and all kinds of fun. Sir Will usually makes an appearance too. So really a great moment for team spirit and to cheer on our team.
So, and that's going to be on February the 21st. I'm assuming that you're going to put more information about that in Student Central and Central Station so we can get behind what the Central Penn Knights are doing this year. Having a great season, fully expect them to make another positive run in the tournament, and we'll be there with them every step of the way.
Absolutely. We are waiting actually just to find out when that live broadcast will happen. So as soon as we get times, those details will be forthcoming. That's
fantastic, Adrienne. Thank you. All right. Well, now it's a time for what we've all been waiting for. This is Adrienne's featured 3 events for the month of February. Take it away, Adrienne.
All right. So first up, I have to mention our Winter ATEC Dance. It is going to be February the 10th. That's a Friday night in our conference center. The theme this time is going to be Winter Ball, so we are telling everybody to dress to impress. There may be some crowns and tiaras there to make everybody feel exceptionally dapper. It's going to be a wonderful evening. We have DJ Gainsbond coming in to play music. Going to be a lot of fun. Again, that's going to be Friday, February 10th from 9 to midnight. My number 2 is going to be Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We have a ton of things actually going on Valentine's Day on February 14th. Our Activities Advisory Board is going to do lunchtime bingo in the Night and Day Cafe just for fun. It's going to be free to play. We'll have prizes. They're going to be running that, so that should be great. SGA is going to be, our Student Government Association, is going to have Valentines for sale with, I believe, delicious cake pops and I think carnations. They're working out what they're going to sell and going to have some things that you can actually buy a treat for your Valentines. And then in the evening, Student Government Association is planning a movie night. They have picked the very romantic movie, Warm Bodies.
I can't say I'm familiar with that one.
So the movie actually involves a lot of zombies. There is a love story there too. So I think it's going to be fun for
zombie love story. What a way to finish your Valentine's Day with your special someone.
Number 3, Adrienne.
Number 3, we're going to hear more about this, but I really want to mention there's a performance happening on Thursday night, February 16th, called A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer. And this is something, for the past 3 years, we've done a production of the Vagina Monologues, focusing on empowering women and really joining the movement to end violence against women and young girls. This is the 4th year that we've done a show in a similar vein. A little bit of a different script actually brings men into the show. So we have men and women all joining for the cause of bringing voice to stories of those that have been affected by violence. Very, very powerful. We have students, faculty, staff, community members all involved. Super low ticket price. But the best part about it is every dollar from the ticket price goes to Randy's House of Angels, which is a local organization that works to end violence against women as well.
And we'll talk much more about Randy's House of Angels coming up later on in the podcast with Adrienne and Janet. The one thing that I did want to point out is, again, I know I said this at the top of the show, but this is a very special day for myself and every member of the Media Club. And Adrienne, we just really want to thank you for your guidance, for your support, and your willingness to be a part of what we're doing here. And we honestly genuinely do not believe that we would be here if it wasn't for you. So I'm glad that you were able to be on the first podcast that we did from our new studio. And we hope to continue expanding into some other things. But for now, we're extremely pleased with where we are. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back with news correspondent Norm Geary. And keep in mind later on, we'll have Janet Bixler, theater director, and Adrienne will be back on to talk about the show. To the Nightly News Podcast. Today what we're going to do is we are sitting down with news correspondent Norm Geary. He has been working with us during his time here at Central Penn as, like I said, our news correspondent. And what he's going to do is take a look at a few things we have going on with the Media Club, but also a few things going on campus as well. And he's going to continue talking about how the textbook situation that we have not only just on our campus, but nationwide. Norm, it's a pleasure to have you today.
Glad to be here.
So, Norm, I know that we were working on a few things. This is actually our first podcast that we've had in our new studio, which we will talk about shortly. But the Nightly News has some major news. Do you want to go ahead and start with that?
Yes, first agenda would be the soup sale, February, Wednesday 15th. We're going to have a soup sale fundraiser from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The menu will be chicken corn, vegan vegetable, and Maryland crab soup. Cost, the crab soup will be $4. The chicken corn and the vegan vegetable will be $3.
One of the interesting things I did want to point out about the soup sale was that was actually one of our biggest fundraisers last term. We actually ended up getting about $150 from that fundraiser and ended up being one of the most profitable that we've had yet. Something that we will be doing hopefully every winter, and something that I really hope that we get a little bit of support. The one thing I did want to point out as well, Norm, we do something very interesting with these fundraisers because we do delivery, which is something that we thought would make us stand out. Did you want to talk a little bit about why we wanted to make sure that delivery and pre-orders are such an important part of this?
Well, I'm going to say in order to do an effective fundraiser, you have to have organization, and this is why we're doing the pre-orders. And we really don't want to encourage walk-ups. We may have extras, but the main reason I'm thinking we're doing the pre-orders is to make sure that we have organization and everything works in an organized fashion like we did last semester.
Well, and as well, we also wanted to make sure that we did delivery because we know that a lot of different clubs have done food sales on campus, and trust me, speaking from experience, putting these food sales together can be very difficult, a lot of moving parts. But one of the interesting things about the delivery aspect is we can make it a little bit more approachable for our faculty and staff, as well as our students, to have a nice meal without having to leave their house on a cold afternoon. So we really wanted to make sure that delivery was an important aspect. And I did want to, you did make a reference to the fact that we were going to just be doing pre-orders. We did that specifically. We want to do that specifically because we want to make sure that we have everything. And we don't want to make a whole bunch of extra soup that potentially could go to waste. So we want to make sure we've got a general idea before we go into it how much soup that we are going to need. So please make sure to join us on Wednesday, February 15th from 11 to 1. And please send all pre-orders for the chicken corn, Maryland crab, or vegan vegetable soup to Paul Miller at centralpenn.edu. And I'll be more than happy to put you down and make sure we get it delivered. And then all the cash can be paid at time of delivery. We'll also have change for you as well. Norm, there's some other things going on here on campus, namely the fact that we are now in our new podcast studio. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about our new studio?
Well, that would be our open house, and you are cordially invited to see our new podcast studio located on the second floor of the Boyer House. This will be February 9th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch will be provided. We're very excited about this.
One of the things that we really have been working toward for quite some time now is the fact that we didn't have our own space. We were so graciously welcomed into the Center for Teaching Excellence to do our podcast, and we've been doing our podcast there for about a year. And we really, really appreciate what Judith Dutil and Kim Bateman have allowed us to do in the Center for Teaching Excellence. But that said, we sort of outgrew the area, and so to have this space in the Boyer House has been something that we have worked toward for such a long time. So happy that we're able to be back on the air with you from our new podcast studio. And what's even better, Norm, is that we have already, just since in one day, since we've gotten the podcast studio set up, we've already booked 5 podcasts. So we're definitely looking forward to moving in the right direction here. One of those podcasts is actually going to be with Steve Hassinger from Career Services, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the CPEC Job and Internship Fair that's going to be coming up on February the 21st. Norm, do you want to give us a little bit more information about that upcoming job fair?
Yes, on February 21st, there will be a job internship fair with approximately 100 employers that will be represented and looking for future interns and full-time employees. The event will be held at the Radisson Hotel Harrisburg in Camp Hill. You may attend the event at any time between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Transportation will be provided from the Summerdale campus with a van running several times during the event based on transportation needs. And to register for the job internship fair, please contact Career Services at centralpenn.edu and let us know if you require transportation. But you want to come and dress professionally and bring a resume and also have a set of questions for those that may interview you.
Just wanted to point out, for a list of participating companies, visit www.cpec.info/candidate info for fair. This is actually, and Steve's going to talk a little bit more about this, Norm, this is actually the biggest job fair that Central Penn is a part of on a yearly basis. It is a wonderful opportunity for not only just graduating students, which, Norm, I know you're graduating. Hopefully you're going to be planning on heading over there. But not only just for graduating students, for younger students as well. And, of course, this is something we're going to elaborate on an entire podcast with Steve Hassinger. But Steve talks a lot about the importance of going to a job fair as a freshman or sophomore student. And really what it is it's going to give you a lot more confidence in yourself. It's going to give you some experience in these types of situations, dealing with people who, frankly, are in charge of making the calls when it comes to hiring. And finally, it's going to get you to know some of the players who are in the game as far as job opportunities when you leave here. You know, in my personal situation teaching, Norm, I teach a freshman seminar class quite frequently, college success seminar classes quite frequently. One of the things that I notice a lack of is career research as a student. I don't know that all of our students are adequately prepared for what jobs are available to them out there, or even what they're going to do with their degree specifically. We live in a day and age where you have to be in a specific niche, and that could be, in communications is a little different because we kind of have to be good at everything, writing, voice, video, etc. But in a lot of other majors, you're going to have and find your niche before you determine where the jobs are. And I think that that's one thing that our students really should do a little bit more of their own research before they start making decisions about what their future holds for them. So one thing I just wanted to point out there. We do look forward to having Steve Hassinger on a future podcast to talk much more about the CPEC job and internship fair. Norm, there's some other major things coming up here on campus. Go ahead with the next story.
Well, NAVSUP, Weapon Systems Support in Mechanicsburg, is coming to Central Penn College. They will be presenting an information session regarding federal jobs and co-op opportunities at 2 different times on March 14th. The session will be held in room 202 of ATEC building on the Summerdale campus from 12:10 to 1 p.m. and again from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. You may attend either session. This is a discussion with interested students and alumni to be informed about the organizational mission, jobs, pay, benefits, and etc. They will be accepting resumes and transcripts as well. So we're excited about that as well. And the same thing applies, contacting Career Services at centralpenn.edu.
You know, something that's very interesting about this, I've actually talked to Steve about these job opportunities. Some of these job opportunities are internships with not the promise of a job, but as sort of an entry-level position. So this would be one of those situations where it'd be an internship with the great potential of getting a position within the company, which, to be perfectly honest with you, not only myself, but Central Penn as a whole, that's what we're looking for. When we send students out to an internship, we want them to be able to have a job with that company so long as they do a good job. And so I think that that's wonderful. And not only that, getting involved with basically a federal job opportunity, I mean, that's usually has pretty fair job stability as well. So that's typically what we're looking for when it comes time to get our students involved with these types of things. Now we're going to switch and turn the page, Norm, to something that you've been covering for quite some time. I encourage you to listen back to some of Norm's previous podcasts with me when we did the news. And one thing I wanted Norm to talk about was how the textbook situation has changed over the years. Anybody who has ever been on a college campus understands the issues with textbooks. And it's not just the expense. It has a lot to do with other issues that come along with it, but the expense is a major part of it. The bigger picture that Norm talked about last time was the fact that, frankly, some of these textbook, the big textbook, if you will, the Pearsons, the McGraw-Hills of the world, are having a lot of trouble because there's a lot of internet piracy of textbooks. I'll give you a perfect example. Norm, the current class I'm teaching, and I'm not going to disclose what class this is, but the current class I'm teaching, I actually found the entire textbook very, very easily through Google. It took me one Google search, and I found the entire textbook. So you can, and that's piracy, and that's something that's not only happening in textbooks, but certainly music and movies as well. On one hand, a lot of the public, especially college students, they don't necessarily feel badly for these textbook corporations. They say, well, these are, tens of millions or billion-dollar industries. Who cares if they don't make $50 off of me? But it's really the whole industry and the scholarly research that goes into this and how it does and will have an impact on higher education. So actually something came across yesterday that I read about on Inside Higher Ed, which is a wonderful website if you guys are so inclined to check that out, about a new type of business model that some of these textbook publishers may want to consider in the future. Norm, did you want to talk about that?
Yes, I was very fascinated by this particular article. Textbook publishers contemplate inclusive access as business models of the future. On their website, an article January 31st, 2017 brings up a subject about inclusive access materials.
What do they mean by inclusive access?
Well, what's going on is the textbook publishing industry is considering a transformation that could significantly alter how faculty members assign reading materials, publishers make money, and students obtain course material. For years, the transformation has been portrayed as a shift from physical textbooks to digital course material. But that description doesn't capture the underlying changes in how course materials are delivered and paid for as the industry is moving away from transactions and towards subscription.
Well, I mean, you have to think about the olden days, I suppose you would say, and I hate to, the day before my 36th birthday, I hate to date myself, but I remember back in college when I went to the bookstore and stood in line for hours and hours waiting for my textbooks. Now, of course, since the internet, it's a lot easier to get your textbooks through an Amazon, through a Chegg.com. There are many, many other resources out there for getting textbooks, quite inexpensively, I might add, especially if you're willing to use a used edition or an old edition, if that's possible. But the thing is now, because of the increase in the shift to more online learning, but Norman, I'm sure you'll vouch for this, even our on-ground classes have an element of online part of it. So regardless of how you attend class, there is a significant online component. So what are they proposing here? I understand that we see the business models change, but I'm not sure that we've still quite talked about what inclusive access means.
Well, McGraw-Hill Education and other publishers are growing increasingly interested in a model called inclusive access. And this is what Peter J. Cohen, the president of McGraw-Hill Education U.S. Education Group, said, "In some ways, I believe that this is a long-coming wake-up for the industry. We and the rest of the industry are recognizing that the days of what has been a high-priced textbook is over." So these major publishers are now looking into inclusive access or digital material.
I think that I know that they didn't really go into a whole lot more detail because it's not usually prudent for a business to talk about their business model. But the biggest issue and the biggest pushback for so long on textbooks was the expense. Now, I understand in some cases why textbooks are more expensive, because the people behind them who are writing it and doing the research, that research needs paid for. These individuals need paid. And a lot of think about how long it would take to write a textbook on your own or even with help. But that being said, I mean, I've spoken to students just here on campus that are paying upwards of $1,000 for one term of textbooks. And so, of course, you're going to have, it's almost like, and this is sort of an interesting comparison, but it's almost like jersey sales from the NFL. For you sports fans out there, if you were unaware, there's a pretty significant black market of imported jerseys that are not officially licensed by the NFL. The pushback was this: why would I pay $200 on the NFL website for a jersey that I can basically get the same thing, even though it is on the black market, for $30 to $50? It's the same kind of thing that we're talking about here. You know, when you're paying upwards of $1,000 a term for books, depending on your major, of course. A lot of those are in more of the health sciences majors where they have multiple books or things of that nature. But at the end of the day, there has to be something that happens differently than what is going on with these textbook providers, because, frankly, textbooks are still and will be a cornerstone to many of our courses in higher education. There does need to be some foundation of what the course is going to talk about. So this is very interesting, and I thought that this was great that this article just recently came out, especially since this is something that you've been covering for quite some time. So just a couple of things that I'd like to recap with you. As Norm mentioned, our Media Club Soup Sale is going to take place Wednesday, February 15th from 11 to 1 in the ATEC lobby. There will be limited opportunities for walk-ups, but if you're interested at all, please email Paul Miller at centralpenn.edu and let me know which Maryland crab, chicken corn, or vegan vegetable you would like and where you would like it to be delivered and at what time. We also would like to tell everybody that we are holding an open house that is going to happen at the Boyer House on Thursday, February 9th from 11 to 1, and lunch will be provided. Don't forget about the CPEC Job Fair on February the 21st. We will be talking more to Career Services Director Steve Hassinger about that, so look forward to a future episode. We've got the Naval Supply Weapon System Support in Mechanicsburg is coming to Central Penn College for 2 different informational sessions on March the 14th, held in ATEC Room 202 from 12:10 to 1:10 and from 5:30 to 7. Information about that can be found at Career Services at centralpenn.edu through email. And finally, to continue with Norm's discussion, textbook publishers are contemplating a more of a subscription-based model as opposed to a pay-for-a-book type model. So, wonderful newscast here, Norm. I got to give you a lot of credit. And you will forever go down in Central Penn College history as having the first official podcast in our new studio.
Well, I'm excited about the things that the Media Club is doing. I'm happy about the new home at the Boyer House. But one thing I didn't want to forget as we end our podcast, we do have some congratulations in order, Professor Miller. Did you want to cover those?
Well, we did just have our very first election for the Media Club, so I do want to congratulate new President Sherry Long, new Vice President Yuliani Cedejo, and new Secretary, Cy Pinthong. I know it's been an interesting ride for you as the Vice President here, Norm, but you being in your last term, you decided to sort of pass the torch, if you will, and you've certainly handled everything in the best way possible. So I got to give you a lot of credit and a lot of thanks, and we also look forward to some wonderful new things for the Nightly News coming up in 2017 and beyond. So, Norm, just from me, thank you very much for your service to the club. And you're not going anywhere. We still have you for another 2 months. And we're going to make sure we get good use out of your experience and expertise.
Thank you, Professor Miller.
And thank you, Norm. And I just want to say thank you all very much for listening to today's newscast. For news correspondent Norm Geary, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you the next time on the Nightly News Podcast. Welcome back to the Nightly News Podcast. We are so fortunate, as we mentioned earlier in the show, to be joined by theater director Janet Bixler. Hello, Janet.
Hello.
And
good to be back.
And student activities director Adrienne Thoman.
Hello.
One of the reasons that we wanted to have these ladies in here today is because of something that Adrienne actually mentioned earlier. Coming up on February the 16th, the 6:30 show is A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer, a theater production that's being put together by Janet and Adrienne. First off, before we get too far, how are you guys dividing up the work here? That's usually a question that I have when it comes to things like this, when there's a collaborative effort. I like to hear about how the work is broken down by the two of you.
Janet is amazing. She has been spending so much time with our students, faculty, and staff, everybody involved in the show, it's going to be incredible. So I'm calling Janet the official director, and her creative ideas have been brilliant.
And Adrienne's the producer, because first of all, the show wouldn't exist if Adrienne didn't come to me and say, well, we need to do the vagina monologues again, because Adrienne is very much a champion for the social justice cause of female empowerment. And Adrienne and I decided we should maybe put the vagina monologues on the back burner, because Eve Ensler, who created the vagina monologues, is very strict about what you're allowed to perform. And after 3 years, we were a little tired of performing the same stories. But then Adrienne did more research into the Eve Ensler's website and resources and found the anthology A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer, which are stories written by authors of fiction, poetry, and plays, and they tell the stories of violence against women and children. They are either autobiographical, biographical, or fictional. And that's when she came to me and she was like, well, we should do this play and we can put men in it, because vagina monologues, only females are allowed to perform it. And some of the pieces are written by men, and we have male actors in our cast of 21.
Now, I don't mean to take a little bit of a left turn here, but one of the things that I do want to point out is what this piece is all about is domestic violence and sort of the aftermath of it in a way. Can you explain a little bit more what the show specifically is about in a general sense?
So it's not the aftermath is part of it, but it really is a variety of stories. So you're going to hear during the show a series of short stories showing different scenarios, different kind of points of view regarding violence against women. So around the world. And it may be, at one point, it's from the point of view of a child that's watching a parent get abused. At some point, it was, I'm trying to think of the other.
There's a great story that our student, Tita Gay, performs, and it is a woman's account as she is a refugee from Darfur, and she is talking to her newborn son about who her father is, about who his father is. And so that is a story from another country, from another culture. There is also stories in there from the famous comedian and actor Kathy Najimy, and she tells the story of when she was 10, and she was in 10th grade, and she had very well-developed breasts, and she was really proud of them, and she goes to a party, and then what ensues at the high school party and how she handles her ability to say no is really incredible. So, like Adrienne said, there's stories that range from the account of the little child to a reporter, an investigative reporter who goes to Cambodia. I am sorry. This is a theater teacher who's not enunciating. There is a investigative reporter who goes to Cambodia and does a story on child sex slave workers. And he works for the New York Times. And he is going to be on the front page of the New York Times with that story. And he knows the girls will stay there and die of AIDS. And so it just ranges. There's a piece that's magical realism, which is a fictional piece written by a man who takes on the character of an artist who, in his attempt to be a great artist, destroys his own body, but he doesn't get any satisfaction from that. So he allows women who have been violated and abused to actually destroy his body as a cathartic moment for them. And it's very deep and it's really intense, and it's about how do we help these people heal.
That's, extraordinarily powerful, and certainly it's very touching for me, because this isn't something that I particularly talk a lot about, but I unfortunately had to witness my mother being a victim of domestic violence, and it's something that's really scarred me for many, many years. I was a very young child, and that's why I really did want to make sure that we talked about this here on the podcast, because it is something that, regardless of your gender, can have significant impacts on you from a very young age and all the way up until later in life. And it's something that I've always been a big supporter of, and I really am excited that you guys are doing something like this. I guess my next question is, how do you deal with heavier topics like this? And let me preface the question by saying, most of the things that you do down in the theater are wonderfully comedic, or maybe a little bit more light. How do you shift from an actor's perspective, from a director's perspective? How do you shift from light, airy, funny comedies to such a serious topic? And speaking from somebody with no acting talent at all, tell me a little bit more about how the creative process is when you have something that's so heavy and so important to talk about.
Well, theater is all about producing and telling stories from all different walks of life, from all different points of views. And while we do a lot of light things and very entertaining things, we do stories that dive into the universal questions of humanity. And theater has often been a place where artists will get up and do work for society, and we call it social justice theater. So it's really important that we do that, especially in this day and age where while we move forward in time and become so much more technologically advanced, there's a sense that humanity is shrinking and falling into little boxes that one only wants to take care of one's direct humans rather than thinking of humanity in the big scope of the world. So it's really important that we expose our students to this, but also in reference to how do we get the students or the actors to want to do this, because they are fully complex humans, and anyone who has any creative spirit and they want to perform, they want to take on the tough stories, and they want to share their voice to bring them to light. And that's what our 21 actors are doing for this piece, because all of the people that are performing have performed in one way or another in their past. We have 9 students. Some have been performing with us for a while. Some are on our stage for the first time, but they have performed elsewhere. We have actors from the community that perform at professional regional theaters, at Open Stage and at Gamut, and they've been performing for a long time. We have community members that have worked for the Peace Corps, National Public Radio, that have worked in the public school system, that work in the churches. And we have staff members who are social workers and peace advocates. So all of these people have a personal mission to be part of telling this story.
Do you feel that, you said that it was important to you, but do you feel that as the theater director you have an obligation to do some of these things on our campus, just to sort of get the word out there about some of these extremely important issues that we're talking about, such as domestic violence in this case? Do you feel that you have an obligation to the campus to do this because of your position as theater director?
Absolutely. I mean, we're an institution of higher education, and our ultimate goal is to create a community of lifelong learners that are empathetic to all those that they meet throughout their life, in their career, and in their social activities. And the more variety we put inside the theater, the more perspectives, the bigger and broader the perspectives are of those that do the theater and those that watch the theater. And as you know, when we have a large and vast and broad perspective, we can be more empathetic. and we can be more gentle with those around us.
Adrienne, I just wanted to go to you for 1 second. I see that one of the biggest aspects of this is you were the one that found out more about this piece specifically. What was it, other than the fact that we talked about it, you said that you'd done the same thing 3 years in a row and you wanted to open it up to a few more voices. What was it about this specific show that really stood out to you that made you want to push forward with bringing this to our campus?
So the one thing, first of all, I want to thank you for what you shared earlier, Paul. I think one thing that makes this show so important is that these stories are real. You know, whether or not they're fictional, these stories are happening around our world. There's a prevalence to them that needs to be shared. So when we talk about how our students identify or how they deal with it, these are their stories too. You know, unfortunately, the women, the men, everybody in our show, and one way or another, we're all affected by this violence. So it just makes it so important to bring it to light. When we found this show, I love that it was, you know, I love the vagina monologues. It's fun. It's a blast. You know, we always enjoy putting on that performance. But I love that this one engaged men, that we could have all members of our community involved in it and get them involved in the story too. Because as much as we want, as women, to be empowered to make a difference, we need guys joining in on this fight too. They need to be a part of the discussion and part of the solution. So I love that we're getting to bring them in this time around too.
Well, and like I said, it's not really something that I talk a lot about, but it's something that stays with me, and that's why when I hear something that you guys are trying to do with this specific topic, it's very important for me to be involved in any way I can, and this is one way that I can.
We'll sell you a ticket too.
I'm sure that we can talk about that. Tell me a little bit more about Deborah Donahue. She is a part-time faculty member here at Central Penn College in the School of Business, but she also used to be the executive director of domestic violence services of Cumberland and Perry counties. Can you tell me a little bit more about what her role is with all of this and with the putting on of the production?
Sure. When Adrienne and I were pulling together the auditions for this piece, I ran into Deborah at the copy machine in West Wing 20, and we introduced ourselves, and I mentioned the theater and everything, and she was very excited because she had some connections with theater, and I had mentioned the upcoming show, and she got even more excited, and then she told me about her connection with Randy's House of Angels. She is on the board of Randy's House of Angels, which is a local organization that helps to stop the violence against women and children. Randy was a woman who lived locally in our area a while ago, and her husband hired a hitman to kill her.
This story is just unbelievable. I don't know how much is out there. Can you just share a little bit more about the story in particular?
Well, I know that after that happened, her mother, Nancy Chavez, created Randy's House of Angels. Adrienne, do you have more to share?
So Randy's House of Angels is a local organization. They do a lot for the community in terms of they have a camp. They do a Randy's Race, which is a 5K event that happens every spring. It's a fundraiser for their group, a golf tournament. They do therapeutic children's groups. But their real mission is to help children and families that have been exposed to domestic violence. Again, unfortunately, it was a really tragic story that led to it, but Nancy and what she's doing in the name of her daughter is making a huge impact on those affected by violence.
Absolutely. When I saw that, when I was doing my prep for the show today, I was absolutely blown away about that story. And it's just wonderful that not only are you able to support a fantastic organization locally, but also that this individual is a part of our Central Penn family. So I think that it sort of made a lot of sense for you to make the next step on doing this specific show.
Well, and as is the policy of Eve Ensler, who created the Vagina Monologues and who was the creator of this piece, A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer, she insists that any ticket proceeds go to support an organization working to stop the violence. And so we were really fortunate to find Randy's House of Angels and that it was so local. And so all the ticket proceeds will go to support Randy's House of Angels.
Again, we're here with Adrienne Thoman, Student Activities Director, and Janet Bixler, Theater Director, talking about A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer coming up on February the 16th at 6:30 p.m. There are 21 different diverse cast members, men and women, students, staff, community members, and local actors, as well as some fantastic crew that's worked with Janet and what she does. One of the things that I also wanted to point out was how important it is to, aside from the show, how important is it to you for the faculty and staff to come out and support their students, and what impact, maybe from on your side of the fence, I suppose you would say, what impact does that have on actors in the play, in any production that you're doing? How important is that to the student actors themselves to see faculty and staff in the audience?
Well, it really validates all their work. It also makes them feel that they are better understood by their faculty and staff members. We are such a small institution that a lot of us know everybody. And the students really value seeing their professors in the audience, that they can actually share with them their talents, but also that their professors have taken the time to say, what you're doing is important, and I value that you are giving the time. Our students and faculty have very, very tight schedules, so to be able to give the time to rehearse and perform a piece of theater is definitely not a small task. And for a professor to take the time out of their busy schedule and their family life to come and attend is not a small task. And everybody involved understands that. So when the actors show up on stage, the students, and when the professors show up and the staff members in the audience, it is very much acknowledged and appreciated that there is worth and value because time has been given. And when a student feels that someone is valuing them, they want to grow more. They want to do more. Some of our students in this show have not been on our stage or really any other stage before this. And it's really courageous. And to support that courage is supporting that young adult's ability to grow even more.
Adrienne, I'm curious if you have any perspective, being the activities director. What do you think that the students feel when the faculty and staff get involved, not only just with them, but even if it's going out to a basketball game and sitting in the stands with them? What impact does that have on them as they grow as people while they're here in college?
First of all, I think it's an incredible honor that they want us to be there. You know, it's so exciting to me, and it means so much to me. You know, the last show that you did, Janet, the cast would come up, "Are you coming to the show tonight?" And that was like, really, they want me there to come. Like that meant so much that they asked me to be there, and that it really meant something to them. You know, not just with the theater, but you're right, with all activities. You know, are you coming to the game tonight? Mm-hmm. Are you going to be there? That means something to them. We have such an opportunity to be their cheerleaders, to show them how much value that they have and how much potential they have to make a difference in their world. And we need to be there. We need to be there and support them.
It's really about creating community. And we have such an opportunity with the way our school is set up, that we are small, to create a really strong community where it's a lot of reciprocity of giving back, being supported and then supporting others because you've been supported.
One final thing that I wanted to point out, aside from the show, and we will get back to plug the show, don't worry. Janet, I know that you're always looking for more help, whether it's on stage, whether it's crew, whether it's just some time to volunteer. From what I understand, you can give some community service hours, correct?
Yes.
And what, just for, if any students are out there listening, they're interested in getting some community service hours, what are some of the things that they could do for you to earn some community service hours?
A lot of students like to usher to see the show. They can see it for free, and ushering is a big responsibility of welcoming the audience. We do get a good handful of local people just coming to the theater that don't have any connection with the school, but they know about the play or the musical. And so ushering is a big responsibility to welcome them and to help seat them. Also, I can always use help selling concessions. That's a big deal because that's one of the main ways the drama club, the Central Penn Players, makes any money, the fundraisers through the concessions. Another way to help is when we do bigger shows, we definitely need a couple people backstage in the wings to help with moving pieces and moving actors and moving curtains, doing backstage work. We definitely could use help with that.
Now, if anybody would like to get involved with the Central Penn Players or just be involved on a smaller scale for community service hours, how should they go about getting in touch with you?
Well, you can always find me in the theater Wednesday from 4 to 5 with the Central Penn Players. And you can always email me at Janet Bixler at centralpenn.edu. I'm often around the theater, so just come to the theater and you'll find me there. Or Malcolm Fox, my student worker, if you know him, he always knows where I am. And he can also guide you to how you might be able to get involved, because he's been with me for several terms, and he is amazing.
Well, I would just want to point out, again, the production is A Memory, a Monologue, a Rant, and a Prayer that will take place on February the 16th at 6:30 p.m. in the theater. You can grab tickets on February the 9th or February the 16th from 1 to 2:30. That you can also, along with this article, we will post the Eventbrite login where you can purchase tickets online or you can purchase tickets at the door. Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. Adrienne, Janet, I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to come down here and be on our very first podcast in our new studio.
Woo!
But,
Yay!
but honestly, the two of you have been wonderful. You've always been willing to help us out and be on the show. And to be perfectly honest with you, without you, again, I don't know, without either of you, I don't know if we would be where we are. So it's much appreciated. So, Adrienne, thank you again for coming on. Janet, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
For Adrienne Thoman, Student Activities Director, and for Janet Bixler, Theater Director, I'm Professor Paul Miller, and we will catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.